if I'm staying within one spot and I'm just kind of, doing stuff like that, what's going to happen is you're going to get very pattern based. You're going to do a lot where you're thinking very much like a normal guitar player does. Guitar players in general have their scales, they understand them, but they think very vertically, where they might play different patterns, but they might say they took that mixed Lydian mode, they might do some pattern on the way back down, that sort of thing. Nothing. It's okay. It can be definitely cool to play some fast things. But if you listen to that, you're just kind of straight up, straight down, not a ton of interest to it. I would say that like 95% of guitar players struggle with this problem at least once during their playing, and it tends to resurface. So what I would personally do for this is give myself a restriction where, say, I can only play on one string. The reason for this is it forces you to think very differently than you're used to. Because if you're playing on one string, and let's say you're used to playing 3-note per string scales or modes, you're going to have if you stay in one position, you only have 3 notes to use. That's going to get pretty old pretty fast. So it's going to force you to move around the neck more. It's going to force you to apply new techniques in order to keep it creative and unique sounding, but within that restriction. So I'm going to demonstrate the soloing on one string for you. You can pick any string, and it's good to practice on multiple strings. You could start by every 30 seconds you're playing over a backing track, you switch strings. So you could start on the high E string, then go down to the B string, and then down to the G string, and just work your way down every 30 seconds. You could jump around more to make it more confusing for you, to push you to get more comfortable with where you're transitioning to. There's a lot of possibilities. For this demonstration, I'm just going to keep it short and just play on, I'll do the 3rd string for you. So see how I have to use more techniques to move around. If I was staying just in one spot or just using one scale, I'm probably going to be picking every note or using maybe a little bit of legato. But in order to keep this interesting, I have to apply new concepts that I may have not been familiar with. So I'm forcing myself to change position. I'm using bends from notes that aren't even in the key. So if you might have heard I went. So within the key, we have these 3 notes. And I started on, sounds pretty out of key by itself. You just bend it up to a note that's in the key. I'm using these unique ideas to push myself, like I said, outside of my comfort zone. And what I'm specifically choosing restrictions that are going to challenge me. A lot of times when people give themselves a restriction and they're new to this concept, they kind of pick something that may challenge them slightly, but it's not going to challenge them that much. They might do something like, let's say they want to improve their bending accuracy. They're having trouble bending either to the exact note, or they're bending a little sharp or a little flat, something like that. They might do a restriction where they have to apply maybe one bend every phrase, but that's not really going to isolate it enough. So you could take that concept of bending every note, or bending notes at the end of every phrase, and bend every note. So every single note you play in your phrase has to be a bend. Again, this is all coming back to pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and doing something that's really going to challenge you and make it more specific to what you need.